Good evening to everyone as we are live on Facebook at this time. We are live in the greatest time in history, I believe. We're excited about this time. We're excited about God's work in our lives. We're excited about God using us in this season. We're excited. We are excited. We are excited. And I am extremely excited this evening as I have three wonderful ladies with with me this evening to discuss this topic. We're gonna look at the aspects of a woman in today's world. We're gonna look at the function of a woman in today's world and work and business and so on. So I'm extremely excited to have these three beautiful, wonderful women of God to share with me this evening on this subject as I ask them questions and they respond and so on. So as our viewers are getting on, welcome, good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us. Share this page. You don't want to miss this. It's gonna be fiery hot. So you don't want to miss this information that is being shared this evening. You don't want to miss this. So share this link, tag someone, call someone, and tell them get on quick, quick. This is good information, especially the ladies, gentlemen. You will want to hear this as well. So please log on, tag somebody, like I said, and let's get ready for this awesome discussion. Let me first welcome my spiritual mother, Pastor Terry Lamothe. Mom, I want to welcome you to the program again. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Prime. It's an honor and a privilege to be here once more.
Thank you. I want to welcome Evangelist Sherry Ann with us as well. Evangelist, welcome to the program. Oh, this is your first time on the program, so welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, and last and by no means least, Pastor Sophia. Pastor Sophie, I want to welcome you to the program, and this is also your first time on the program, so welcome.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. It's a blessing to be here.
All right, thank you very much, ladies, for accepting the invitation, and thank you for the wisdom and the knowledge that you're going to share. So let's start off this way. As persons are logging on, good evening to you. Thank you for being with us as we share on Is It a Man's World? And you're going to be amazed that maybe when you have this title or this subject, we're not gender bashing today. So if you came on and thought that that's what we are doing, no, that's not what you're doing. That's not what we're doing at all. We are just this is a subject that persons have raised before, and we know it might be something that we have run away from as the army of God, but we are going to get into great detail. So let's start this way, ladies. What is the role of a woman and anybody can answer. What is the role of a woman in this 21st century, 2020, in this era that we are living in now? What is your role?
Well, I'll jump in first because I'm speaking from a past era as well as living in the 21st century. So I would have a perspective of both. And living in the 21st century, the role of a woman has broadened and expanded and has deepened and widened from what I would have experienced growing up in the 20th century, being born and raised by parents only knowing the 20th century, quite different from what the women today who were born in 2020 or in the 1990s that are growing up. The role of the woman in the 21st century has expanded, as I said, where we are in the 20th century, we were thought of as predominantly homekeepers. And even though we would have worked, we were not career oriented. It was basically to supplement an income. And even when we started being educated, coming down, to 2000 and so on, and we found ourselves working and in careers. But in the 21st century, the woman of the 21st century is finding themselves to be the leaders of home and the leaders of businesses and the owners of businesses. And the children that they are also rearing is not only children that just attaining education of a primary school or secondary school. They are training children that are achieving university level, high, broad, not only in their own community. So I'm looking also at the jobs that they're doing. I'm looking at the woman preparing a family and preparing her children in a wider scope. And surprisingly, the woman of the 21st century has a role where she knew or grew up, or the mother grew up, of preparing the woman for the 21st century is a bit difficult, because most mothers or grandmothers grew up where they only knew their village, their community, and by extension, their island or their country or their little world. And now they are preparing their children or the women of the 21st century to fit into a global community, a community that the mothers and the grandmothers don't know anything about. So they're not quite sure how to fit this woman into a 21st century model to perform effectively when they are not quite sure about it. So there is a room for quite a lot of uncertainty for those preparing the 21st century woman, and even for the 21st century woman having to feel it out for themselves and live it out for themselves.
Wow, wow. I know that when you have horse racing and the big horse gets out and you see the power. that's what we just got. Power pack information. Oh my Lord. I don't want to be, these are the two ladies here. I told you this evening was going to be fun-filled, and I'm full of passion and full of fire. Wow, thank you very much for that, Mom. Let's have our other two ladies. Let me hear what's your thoughts on the role of the woman in the 21st century. What are your thoughts? Who's gonna go?
Okay, I'm gonna go first. Coming up, saying my mother being at home in the beginning, so the perception was mommy stayed at home, daddy worked. But because of life's demand, then she had to go to work. She wasn't as educated as we would have been today, because obviously in those days education was not the priority. Staying at home and taking care of kids was the priority. But as I said before, life's demand meant that she had to go and work to help supplement the family income. So in her going out and working, she understood the need for education, because obviously it limited her in terms of work. So what she did is she pushed us, her children, to go out and have an education. And going out there and pursuing, she made sure that we completed secondary school, because she didn't complete secondary school. And she understood the need for us so that we can have a better job, a better quality of life. It was important for us to have education. So being exposed out into that environment now pushed us now into another level of not only attaining education, but having a career. Now, this was another dynamic. Now, obviously, I am accustomed seeing mommy at home. So my perception was to be at home. So therefore, I had to change all of that thinking when I was small into being career driven. So now comes in the dynamic now of wanting a family, but career driven. So I had to learn how to manage that in today's society, having to change the mindset of being a housewife to being a career driven woman, and still wanting that idea of a family. So we had to learn how to manage that. And in today's society now, where everybody is career driven, one time it was okay to have a degree. Now a degree is not enough. You have to get a higher level of education just to get by, just to get the income to supplement the home. So having to study, having to be career oriented, having to have family and other commitments, and the ministry was a whole set in a plate to have to learn how to balance all of that. So today's life is very, 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 very interesting, I must say.
Wow. Oh my, I told you it was gonna be hot and fiery this evening. That's number 2. Let's hear fireball number 3.
Well, I want to fully agree with everything Mom and Sherry Ann said. And I am going to put a different perspective on it because my mother raised us to be very independent, independent thinkers, get up and do things for yourself. So we never had or we never saw in our home. And as a matter of fact, in our home was different. Mom was actually the breadwinner of our home, so to speak, in a sense, meaning going out and working. She was a teacher at the time. But dad was full-time in ministry, so he would be more at home. So I grew up in a reversal role where I saw dad at home and mom out in the work field. So for us, or for me, I think that stuck with me. So I am highly independent in a good way, right? But also I am a young woman in ministry. And I would like to spin it from that angle because I know the other 2 ladies would have touched on work. I think we face challenges all the time in ministry, at least I have, especially when it comes to a woman's role and using biblical scriptures to kind of doctrinalize or culturalize what a woman's role is. So for me, I think in the past decade or 2, you would have seen an emergence of women in various platforms in work, in politics, in law, in education, and so forth, even in ministry. And I think it's something that's not going to change, but even as the years come and go, it's going to evolve into something greater and something more. And we have got to learn how to balance beautifully our how do I say this? What the response from the men will be towards us, and how do we respond to the men? That's what I'll start.
Wow, another power pack of information there. So ladies, I want to ask you this question. So you are all professional ladies. You're ladies who are highly educated and so on. Do you ever feel in your different responsibilities, whether it's church, whether it's at work, whether it's dealing with different situations, that as a woman, you feel as if you are, I don't want to say second class, but you feel as if the world or society treats a woman different from how they treat a man when it comes to leadership? Do you all feel that way? Mom, you could probably start with you first. Because you were principal of a school.
Yes. With the world does treat men differently from women. It's like if we coming to culturally, historically, that the men were already seen as the one having the dominant leadership role. So it was a norm to see a man in that role. And for a woman to now come and take that role, you had to fight your way up. You had to prove yourself twice as much to actually be even accepted. And I'm talking about in the workplace. In the workplace, because I'm into education and being a teacher at primary level, it was a normal thing to see women. So we didn't have as much contention. And we had initially a lot of males that were the principals, but because it has to do with promotion due to seniority and so on, eventually a lot of women end up being principals. So in the education system, it was okay. Leadership was not as contentious as being a principal. But what I found is in the normal workplace where it is male-oriented and male-driven and the males are given preference over the women, you find that you had to contend a lot for that position, and that there was a lot of undermining and people looking for more failure from the female than from the male, so that you always had to go far and beyond to prove yourself in leadership. You know, it's like you always have to prove your worth. And I will say this, even in education, from where I come, the few males that were in the teaching in the primary school, felt as if they had just gotten there and they did not put out as much as the women had to put out in all areas, because it was like, that's a woman's job, you know, the teaching and so on, because it had that motherly aspect to it. But once you go up into administration and leadership, the men were always viewed as the more competent. So, you know, well, we are happy to say the women have proven that wrong, that we are equally competent. And that stands because mothers and women are good managers.
Yes.
You know, they started us historically being managers of homes, and we have done an excellent job at that. So it was just a transfer of the skills we have learned. And so we are good managers of time, of finances, of resources. So our leadership skills are beyond par. It's beyond excellent. And so they can contend with that. But in the other spheres, whether it is in the judiciary department, in the law department, in the business department, it is doubly difficult as a woman to prove your worth.
Well said. Evangelist Sherry-Ann, share with us, please, in terms of how is it for you in a work environment where there's a mixed gender there. How is it for you?
Coming into it, I saw a lot of being taught the subject, because I'm into accounting, auditing, and investigations. Most of my tutoring were done by males. So you got all the information from the men. But eventually you saw females coming into those roles as well. So it was a male-dominated environment. And I find that you had to prove yourself twice as much to show that you are just as good or even better. You didn't get the recognition and the respect that you believe that you should have gotten. Even from, and it is not only from the men, it was also from women, because some women did not think that they were good enough to be the head of accounting, to be the head of auditing, to be head of investigations. So that was a mindset that persons needed to get over, because as I said, male dominated, and it was tough when you're doing presentations. You have to be firm, you have to be assertive, you have to make sure that you're well knowledgeable of your topic, because there were some people that would challenge you in those areas just because you were a woman. So it was a challenge, but I think that one of the things that we need to do as women is to help empower women, help be a voice for other women, to let them know that today's perception of the woman has changed, and not only to empower them, but to help them. When you are going up, you take them up with you. Help them to shift their mindset that they too can attain education, they too can become heads of department, they too can become heads of sections, and let them feel that they are, this equality that is real, they can attain it. But yet there are still some challenges faced by some persons who still think that a woman should be in the home, a woman should not have a leadership role. She can be second in command, third in command, fourth in command, but when it comes to actually taking command, you still have those challenges from both male and female.
Wow. Pastor Sophie, you want to jump in there?
So I don't like going last. Let me just say that, because after Mom and Sherry-Ann talked, there's much that I could say. What I would say is that, so next time ask me first, right? I would say that as women, we're born into a world where there are already preconceived notions, where there are glass ceilings, where where it's set already that we can only reach thus far. And to those of us that push past that glass ceiling and push past those preconceived notions, we're often labeled as aggressive, not assertive. We're often labeled as we have gone against the tide. We're not doing what the Bible says. We're not being good keepers of the home. And you often hear this back and forth in the workplace, you hear it in ministry, you hear it from the older generation, the generation that's before us, that we have changed the world. And because we are changing, they say that we are negating basic values. But Ariane said, you can be a career woman and still have an amazing family life. Mm-hmm. You can be a leader of a church, whether you're female or not. You can hold positions that were once predominantly held by men. I think what we have to change, as she rightfully said, is our mindset. Our mindset to support each other as women, but also the mindset coming from males. I think as long as we're seen as the lesser vessel, and in terms of what we bring to the table, then we're going to always have that disparity where male and females are concerned and gender roles.
All right, thank you for sharing that. That's great information. I wanna maybe spin in a different direction for now. God made male and female, and he put male and female together. Now, obviously, our God is a genius and very strategic. So there must be something very valuable about both genders. So that's why he brought them together. And understanding the value of each, I think, is paramount. What do you say as ladies, professional ladies, anointed ladies, and intelligent ladies? What do you say a woman brings to the table? And when I say the table, I'm not speaking of in terms of you have to come and say, oh, I have this, or this is where you need me. But I mean, what aspect does a lady bring to a situation, brings to life, brings to family, brings to church, and so on? What are some of the qualities that we need, that we men need, that our children need, that ladies bring to the table, that is necessary? Like I said, I want to make it emphatically clear that we need both male and female, but there's something that a lady brings to the table that we males cannot bring. So I want to know, in your thoughts, ladies, what do you bring to the table? And not in comparison with the men, but what do you bring as an individual or a person? And I'll leave it there so that Fireball 1, 2, or 3 can respond.
Go ahead, Sapphira.
Things, and I'm because I know Mommy's going to go on the other angle, so I'll spin it from the next one. One of the things that I think we bring to the table is intuition, and we talk about it all the time. You know, we have this gut feeling, but I think the Holy Spirit and God was very cheeky when he made woman. And sometimes we can sniff out a problem, or we can sniff out things faster than a man can. Not because they can't do that, but I think because we're so much more in tune with our emotions, and men are seen as the more logical creatures and very singular in their focus, while women could be a little bit more multi-dimensional and can multitask a little bit better. So I think we bring intuition to the table, and I think it's important, especially when it comes to decision your role and function within your career, within the home. Like I would always say of Mommy, how does she know I'm doing this? How does she know? You know, and she would say, you know, sometimes she would say the Holy Spirit revealed it to me. But I think what we've been able to do, we've been able to look at beyond the surface things. As a woman, we're able to look past surface and go in depth and see what is happening. And I'm not talking about looking at the men now. I'm looking at situations, decisions that we have to make. When things come at us, we don't just view it from one angle. We have the ability to view it from different angles and look and kind of track the outcome of each angle. So with that, we're able to make a well-informed decision. Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, to me, I think what women bring... Thanks a lot, Sophie. I think one of the things for me is to bring that nurturing aspect, that gentleness to the situation, bring that idea of managing multiple activities and tasks at the same time, and we being able to compartmentalize everything and still have things in order, still have things running. But for me personally, I believe in God's order. I believe in man being the head of the home. I
Mhm.
believe in women assisting the man. He has a vision, he has a mission, he has a goal. I believe that the woman is there to assist him.
Mhm.
So, you know, so in coming into that, we're not dominating, we're not ruling, but we're coming to assist him in meeting the goal that God has given to him. So
Mhm.
he would have that protective instinct. He would have the provider instinct. He would have the enforcement of the law instinct. And what we do, we come with our nurturing, our caring, measure of guidance, and as Pastor Sophie said, that intuition and being able as the woman to know when and where to speak, how to speak, in order to get across our point to them so that they can see our point of view. And also for the men to have that recognition and respect for our contribution to the relationship itself. So that's why I think that we would bring so that it can work together, because they are different. We come with a different perspective, but if we have order, if we have respect, if we have recognition for the contribution that both parties make, I believe that we would have a clear understanding and be able to live well together and manage things together.
Wow, wow. I'm excited to hear mom's comment on this. Mom, go right ahead.
You know, those ladies are really good. They're really
Yep.
good. You know, God made both male and female, and He knows their role, and they were made to complement each other and supplement each other. And you know, I don't have to tell you about who operates by the right brain and the left side of the brain, and
Mhm.
they bring different things. We are not the same. Male and female are not the same. We have different attributes that we all need together to make this to make life work, you know. And
Mhm.
what both of them said about intuition and the nurturing and what the women bring is really, really great, because men are very focused, and I like to think of it as a tunnel vision. I think of women as having peripheral vision. We
Mhm.
see men tend to see one thing and they stay focused. Women tend to see multiple things. They see the side, they see what's happening. So
Mhm.
while a man may observe one thing, a woman is looking at the reaction of others. She's able to see a little wider and add that to what the man sees. Not say that she doesn't need the man. I look at it as a partnership. And
Mhm.
as Sherry-Ann said, we bring that nurturing and that care. We bring the emotion, a lot more emotion, because our men have been taught not to demonstrate soft emotion,
Mhm.
like caring and hugging and loving.
Mhm.
Nothing has been said about the aggressive emotion like anger and all of those things. But I would
Right.
like to think that the woman brings the emotion into the family, into the relationship, into the partnership, whether it's in the community, in the church, whether it's in the workplace. We bring the caring, we bring the details, we are observant,
Mhm.
we can multitask, but we also bring tales that make life beautiful and lovely. You know, like the men, they may plant the garden, but the woman will bring the flowers and all the other things. So we think of the softness and the finer touch while I'm in the home, in the decoration, and all of those things. We see the woman playing that role because, you know, God said everything He made was beautiful. It was
Yeah.
excellent. It was
Yes.
good. And when we look at creation itself, God God needs both male and female to demonstrate who He is, because
Yes.
He pays attention to details, to color. And the hibiscus is not only red, it's yellow, it's orange, it's pink. And He
Mhm.
shows that diversity. And the male alone may not be able to show it, neither the female. So He used both to blend his very character and nature to be used in the world, you know. And I like that, because I think we all bring that complement each other, so
Mhm.
that we could remember we are here to, by extension, to do
Yeah.
God's will and to live
Yes.
according to God's way and to
Yes.
demonstrate God's kingdom. So one gender alone couldn't do it. So God, in his wisdom, in his knowledge, he put both to work together in harmony so as to demonstrate his whole character and his whole nature in bringing up children, in living in harmony. We need both genders, and women play a very, very significant role and a very unique role in everything. Can I just add this?
Yes, please.
Yes. Have you ever sent men to look for anything in a house? Or give them directions and they could never find it in the cupboard? And they may call you on the work and says, I cannot find, I cannot find, something.
Yeah.
And you are on work and you can say, did you look on the third shelf on the right-hand side to the back? Even right in the refrigerator. You will say, you will find a woman. We pay attention to details because Sherry-Ann said it nicely. We compartmentalize, we stick it to memory because that have made our jobs easier. And so we bring all of that now to the table to bless other lives.
Wow. That's great stuff. That's fantastic stuff. Let's move on here to the next question. How then be you three ladies being intelligent, and I'm not only talking about in terms of education, but I'm talking about naturally intelligent, having great levels of common sense. Let me say that, right? How do you, or how are you able to handle your strong personality and still function in orderly? You're able to function orderly and in order without coming over as too strong or disrespectful and so on, whether it be in the workplace or whether it be at home or even at church. How then are you able to still, and because I don't, you don't want to feel stifled, but still you don't want to come over too strong, and then you don't want to come over as too weak, and then you don't want to come over, you want people to take you seriously. How in the name of Jehovah are you able to manage that? Jump right in, please.
Well, that has come by trial and error, I must say, for me. Because there were times when I wanted to put over a point and I became passionate or too passionate about it. And, someone in responding to it, they mentioned, oh, Sherry-Ann was really, really passionate about that. And it hit me, right? You can't force your idea on persons, and you have to know how far to push and when to pull back. So as I said, I learned that by trial and error. And also by looking at other ladies leading in the same environment, leading in ministry and leading in the workplace, how they manage to manage their emotions, be able to put over a point, be assertive, and know when not to cross into being aggressive, right? So it is something that to me I had to learn. It's something that I had to learn.
Okay, thank you, Mom and Sophie. Jump right in there, please.
So I am definitely going before Mommy. For me, it was as Sherry-Ann said. It was as Sherry-Ann said, trial and error. And I had it really, really difficult because I was actually in ministry from 15 years. I was by trial, error, and much crying. Sophie, don't say things like that. Sophie, you have a very strong personality, and it can come across as being dominating and being aggressive. And so over the years, I've learned to temper my speech. I'm working on my facial expressions. I've learned to temper even my body language. Like somebody will say something and I'll be like, what? So I've learned all of that, and Sherry's so right. It comes by trial and error. It comes by, as she said, observing other women, being able to be. For me, it's knowing who I am, understanding that I don't need to be aggressive to be assertive. I don't need to be loud to put my point across. I'm able to do so efficiently and effectively because I'm knowledgeable about the matter. I know what I want to do. I know what a topic, whether it's work-wise, ministry-wise. So I am not floundering. And of course, I must say I grew up in a different era. I am a millennial. So our perspective is a bit different from the baby boomers and baby busters. It's almost as if it's okay for a millennial to be a little bit more aggressive. We're not always understood, but we have a little bit of a different dynamic play there. Go, mommy.
Yeah, I have found experience, you learn from experience, and you would not always have gotten it right dealing with your personality, strong personality. I found myself as a woman, you would think the things through, but you would not say it until you got the confidence to address issues and speak up and speak out. But once you do it with respect for other people, you find that people will pay more attention to you. And so, though I may have lots of thoughts going on in my mind, and I may, like Sherry Ann, be passionate, I've always learned to temperate with a smile and with a calm speech. It worked in the workplace. I was able to get across my point and be respected for who I am, and to be able to speak up and speak out. So in the workplace, that strong personality type, I found it worked well in leadership for me, because I found that some men did not like taking instructions from women, and they would try everything to unsettle you, to oppose you, and not everyone, because I've had some wonderful men working with me, but I've had a couple that they would try everything to unsettle you and to rile you and to get you. And I've observed other women, especially one gentleman, that my previous woman in leadership, that he would scream at her and shout at her and call her names, and she would become really rattled. And I ensured that didn't happen to me. If I have to order you out of the office, I would do it in a very calm voice. I am not going to let you rattle me or let you raise your tone above mine and feel that you could dominate me. If I have to raise it, it will be in a calm way. I'll be louder, but not shouting. And so I would raise my voice, but not out of control or, like I've lost control. So I've learned to take control. I've been a Christian, growing up and having the Holy Spirit in you, that has made it a lot easier. In church, I have always been a good leader and manager. I didn't always know that, but I knew that I had ideas and I would have been in the background. But over the years, I've taken a more frontline role, and I'm not afraid to speak up now because I know what I'm speaking about. So as an administrator, and I am not afraid to say what I have to say, because if you show due respect to other people, they respect you in return. At least they have no choice when you show that sort of thing. Yeah. However, in the home, it was a very different scenario because Joseph, my husband, is a very calm and quiet person. And I found myself many times being very firm. I'm not with him, with the children, being a little more outspoken. And that was a different role I played there. So I took that role. I don't know how he coped with it, because with his calm, graceful self, he took it very nicely. But I'm always a firm. I want to make decision and to be able to look at the situation and assess it. And so I am quick to form an opinion. He is not shaken by my opinion, by my personality, or my responsibility. So I think that's very, very good for me, having a strong personality and someone who does not feel as if they have to cower underneath it.
Wow. And so if you want to jump in there and say something else?
Can I jump in? Can I jump in?
Certainly.
I want to say how that has shaped my viewpoint. And I think it's why I am a little bit more outspoken than Mom, because in our home, Dad was always so accepting of it. He never made it a problem. It never was. So us growing up, you would find all of Mom's kids being the more outspoken one, the one that would jump to leadership roles, that would take tasks, that would get things done. And I think it would intimidate others, but that's what we saw within the home. So I think your home dynamic has a lot to do with your evolution as a woman and coming into leadership, into various aspects of society.
Sorry, I wanted to add something there.
Yes. We also, with our strong personality, you have to know when to speak. You have to know the tone. I have boys, and at times they don't do what they're supposed to do. And I found that I became a whirlwind, shouting, quarreling, giving directions, to realize one day, and on the advice of another gentleman, to just speak calmly, say what I wanted, and just leave the room. And within a couple of days, I didn't have to quarrel anymore. So they did what they were supposed to. So you have to know when to speak, the tone, when what to say. And as Pastor Terry said, men don't like instructions. They don't like the shouting. And we as women, even though we're strong, we need to know with our strength, pull back and calmly say A, B, C. And you will be amazed. And not only, and with our strength, don't intimidate, but influence. Because sometimes you can make it feel as though they're the ones who came up with the idea, but it was really us. So instead of intimidating, because our strong personality can seem intimidating to some persons, instead of intimidating, influence. Yes. And then you're still able to get what you need done without all of the whirlwind and all the passion and all the getting all worked up for nothing.
Well, that's great information there. I'm loving this. You ladies are providing lots of information and lots of experience and knowledge here. Now, as we move on, we're getting close to the end. What kind of advice would you give to a young lady? Let's say she's about 16. She has the idea of life. She wants to be this kind of woman. What is one of the first things that you would say to someone, a young lady in this period? How about preparing for life? What are some of the things you should focus on? What are some of the things you should not do? How do you order your life as a young woman? So what would you say to someone? She's 16 years old. She wants to do this in her life, but she needs some guidance and instruction. How would you give someone like that information? And obviously about your experience and your journey and stuff like that. How would you advise such a child? Any one of you can go.
Okay. Having a 16-year-old, speaking to a 16-year-old about journeying in life, she has to learn to navigate very difficult waters. And because with the age of technology and with the global world being at your fingertips, it's going to be it could be very overwhelming for a 16-year-old. It could be very disconcerting for a 16-year-old. And especially if they are naive and they think that they could have the world on a platter and don't understand the pitfalls and all the things that you need to do. Principles and discipline has not changed. It
Could
does
you
not
say,
matter
say
the
that
era,
again, Mom?
whether
Say that
20th
again.
century or 21st century. You need discipline. You need principles. You got to live by it. Because listen, we are looking at building the whole person, in the spiritual aspect, the educational aspect, the intellectual aspect, and the emotional aspect as well. Because you see, this world that we are living in it's more damaging to the emotions, because everything is on Facebook, everything is global, everything is seen. And these are things we need to instill in our young ladies, the young women. They need to know the principles of hard work and diligence, caring about themselves with dignity, in modesty. They need to know how to apply themselves and to accomplish tasks with perfection. All of those things. So they cannot be slipshod. We have to develop our young ladies to be able to think wider than home, wider than career. They have to be thinking, they have to be solid in every aspect of their life. But we have to start with principles of time management, principles of education, letting them know the role of education, the role of reading, to read things, because the rubber meets the road. And you know, while they're growing up, it's not airy-fairy anymore. They need to be stable. They need to gather as much skills to handle life in all areas. And I would say the world long ago was a little bit more forgiving on our young adults than today. And I will explain why. You see, when you grew up as a 16-year-old, you grew up in a home and in a village or a small community. And if you made a mistake, if you made an error, if you didn't match up to the beauty of the world, it's okay. It's a small world. You understand? And there was room for making errors and changing and coming back. But in today's society, everything is put on social media. Your looks is not compared with the looks of your class or of your school or of your on the world platform. And you've learned to lie about it by filtering the looks on Facebook. So no longer do you look like who you are. And so the world today is teaching our young ladies that they could put on a mask of makeup, a filter on social media, but life doesn't equip them for dealing with relationships, for dealing with workplace, for dealing with bosses, for doing a good job. So I think we need to instill these principles to avoid the pitfalls in these young ladies' lives. So
Okay.
I just stop at that.
Okay, all right. Sharianne or Sophie, you want to jump in there?
But dealing with young ladies, I think one of the first things, and I agree with everything that Pastor Terry said. I'm not going to repeat what she said because that's correct. Principles and standards. What do you have? What are your principles and standards? What are your principles? What are your standards? And I think that, you know, young people, they kind of need to be trained because they come up with another idea that the world has everything for them and they're entitled to everything, but they don't recognize that they still have their part to do. They still have to be personally responsible for their life. Their life is not handed to them. They have to go out there and pursue life. So to me, like when I'm talking to young ladies, I normally ask them, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And what are you currently doing now to get there?
Okay.
And cause them to think about that. I also encourage them to connect with women that are of more experience, women who are in the same the area that they want to get into, connect with those women so that they're able to give them guidance. Remember, in the Bible, it talks about older women training the younger women how to keep house, how to live, how to raise their children. We miss that kind of today. We miss that. So we need to, as older women, more mature women, we need to make sure that we are there to help guide the younger women, right? And when I say older, I'm talking about in terms of experience, in terms of life itself. We've already passed 16, so we have a measure of experience, and we'll be able to guide the younger ladies. So education is important. If you don't have education, you find yourself unable to be employed in a job that will be able to sustain you. And then you are left to life. And sometimes for young ladies, that is not a really welcome place to be, because you are at the mercy of whoever is out there. So education is important. Be careful of the decisions that you make now. I have teenage and adult children, and I often tell them the decisions that you make now will have a ripple effect in life. So be very mindful of the decisions. They also need to learn to be accountable and to be responsible. Find someone that you can be accountable to. Let them know this is the idea that I have, and that person be able to keep them in check and be able to guide them. And above all, seek God in everything that you're doing. The Bible talks about acknowledging Him in all your ways. Even to pursue a particular area of study, you ask God, because at the end of the day, that has an impact on your life further. So as a young person, they need guidance. Some of them are, they think they know it all. But, I normally tell them, I was there. I thought that I knew it all. And I made bad decisions. So you need to get rid of that mindset, connect with somebody that is more experienced than you, and seek that counsel and that guidance. And you will be guaranteed that you will make mistakes. Yes, you will make mistakes, but at least you'll be in a position to be mature enough to handle the consequences, correct the error, and move forward. So that is how I deal with young ladies in that area.
Okay. Sophie, you want to jump in here?
Wow. So I agree with everything that was said before. There isn't much more to say, but I would say that I think young ladies need to know that the world that they're coming into is a harsh world. And while concessions would be given to the male, it may not necessarily be given to you as a female. And it is unfortunate that it is so, but I think what is key, as Mom said, is basic discipline and principles that you have to follow. I think now a lot of young women, there is no plan for their life. They don't plan. They get up in the morning, and however the day falls, it falls. And let me just use an example. We've been down and out in COVID for 3 months.
Right.
If you take a cross section of young people between the ages of 16 and 22 and ask them what have they done to advance their life post-COVID, most of them, as Mom said, we're on social media, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're doing this, but are they progressing towards something? And I want to say it is not just progressing to be a partner or a mate to a man. It's not about progressing to be a wife. It is progressing to be a person that is going to be used by God, that is going to be what God has called them and mandated for them to be at their maximum. But what we have, because as she said, social media is now shaping our world more than anything else, we have young women that they're not focused. Anything is anything. So for me, I think they need to understand that as a woman, it's not as easy as it looks. And as much as the world has changed in the past century, it is still a very difficult thing. It is difficult wherever you go. more so for women if you're getting into roles of leadership, as we spoke about earlier. So I think another thing I want to say to them, and it's something that is very dear to my heart, please know your self-worth and your self-value. I think we focus so much on, and forgive me if I get emotional because it's really dear to me, we focus so much on perfecting a woman, a female, that sometimes they lose how beautiful they are, and they lose how sweet life could be for a 16-year-old, and how to transition and evolve into becoming a woman that is so vivacious and full of life. And what we've done, sometimes we've sacrificed that aspect. We've sacrificed that aspect of self-worth and self-value to perfect an image. And when we get to our late 20s and 30s, we find ourselves floundering and asking ourselves, am I worth it? Can I do this? But we've built a perfect external machine, but the inside is broken. So for me, I would want to say, please, in all that we do, in all that we teach, please remind our girls and our young women of their value and their worth and their beauty and their self-esteem. So when they get to the age of late 20s and into 30s, they're not floundering, and they're not going to have to go for a psychologist or a psychiatrist for help because they can't seem to grapple with issues. So for me, that's what I would like to do.
Wow. Well said.
Yes.
Well said. Mommy wanted to jump in there?
I want to say that in relationship to what Sapphira said, emotional intelligence is something that we must deal with coming to young adults, to the teenage girls. Emotional intelligence, because we have too many young people that are becoming suicidal and depressed and on drugs and at a very, very early age when they should be enjoying life and so on. So we need to teach emotional intelligence, and we need to teach and coaching, life coaches and mentoring. All of these things play a very, very important role in dealing with women. And young women, they don't like being told everything. They like you walking along with them as well. And I think, they are beautiful, and we cannot compromise their teenage, beautiful young years, and let it be done away with all the heavy loads on it. It's a progressive thing we are doing as we develop them in all aspects of their lives.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that. We're going to take a few extra moments to deal with this one before we close. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and it was a female and myself, and the discussion was, when young ladies are not educated or skilled, then they become vulnerable, or they become a prayer, P-R-E-Y, to someone who sees their like someone who sees that they're vulnerable, or someone who sees their vulnerableness. How can a young lady, she not necessarily 16, but she's growing older, or even before that, understand the importance of how do you get them to understand? What can you teach them? What can you show them to understand? If you do not have an education, or if you do not have a skill, you become vulnerable to somebody who sees your vulnerableness and will take it and will use it to their advantage. How do we get young women to understand it is important to have, one, an education, or two, a skill? Because not everybody will have a degree, not everybody will have a master's, but if you have a skill, then you're able to function within that skill. But you need to have one or the other. So how do we get our young ladies to understand that, ladies?
That is going to take some discussion, because young people are coming up now as they're on social media, and they think that life is just happening. So especially for a young lady, it's a little bit difficult. For a guy, he may not have education, he may not have skill, but he can go there and cut grass. He can go there and do, bits and pieces of work and still make money. For a woman, it is difficult. What can you do that will bring in that income? So you need to make sure that you are educated. And I think that it takes a lot of discussion. And for the older women, we need to be able to connect with these younger women. As Pastor Sophie said, have that intuition, allow God to lead you to these ladies, because we come in contact with them all the time. We see them all the time. So instead of just, she will find her way. Be intentional in making an impact into her life. And form a conversation, form a friendship, and speak with her and let her know it is really important to have education. And within each and every one of us, God has given us a gift. There's some persons that may not be academic, but they're good with their hands. They're good carpentry. Ladies are good with hair. They're good with nails. See what the gift is inside of you. And sometimes they don't see it, but we may see it. And sometimes we need to speak to the gift inside these ladies and to pull it out, right? So as leading ladies in ministry and in life, we need to be able to be available to impact these younger women and to talk with them, share our lives with them. There's nothing wrong with sharing the errors that you've made. There's nothing wrong with sharing the things that you've gone through. Because sometimes, if you connect with somebody on a personal level, sometimes they get it. And it means that we have to be able to expose ourselves in order to impact these ladies. So it takes a lot of connecting, finding time. I think that what we're doing is that we're so busy as career ladies and ministry ladies that we stop and we recognize that there's a personal ministry within us to other females, because as the Bible said, we're supposed to be teaching them. So if we don't carry out that mandate, we're not fulfilling our purpose. We're supposed to be impacting the younger ladies. So I think that's one thing we need to do, connect with them. When we see them, find a few minutes to chat with them and see what's going on with them, and be able to offer that counsel and that guidance so that they can get on the right track.
Wow. Mom, Pastor Sophie, you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I will add. I agree with Sherry, and I also want to say that as a woman that speaks to young ladies, I have to have a very open mind as well. I cannot force my views and opinions on what this child or this young woman should be. So for example, let me just give a random example. Let's say they want to be something like athlete. And because in our minds we think, well, an athlete is not a career that you should have. You should probably try to go into education, or you should probably try to do, the more focus on more of those types of careers. I think what we would do is create a gap. But like Sherry said, the more intimate and more personal that you can get with young women and other women, you will be able to share your life experiences. Sometimes also, as older women, we could become very systematic in the way that we speak, the way that we put ourselves across. So while we want the young women to be receptive of us, we as older women don't want to come across as standoffish, meaning that they feel that they can't come to us and be real about their opinions, be real about what they're going through. And so what you are going to get is a mask. What you are going to get is saying, oh yeah, I will do this, I will do that. But really and truly, they're not going to do that. And if you're talking to the younger generation, and I'm talking about 35 and under, we're not dealing with the 18 and under yet, that 18 to 35 age group, you're going to find that they are a very unconventional group. So the traditional way of doing things, and let me be clear, I'm not talking about discipline and principles and all of those things. The traditional approach, the traditional way in which you may speak in terms of how you may bring across a point, the knowledge that you have, we have to amp our knowledge up in terms of dealing with that. Oftentimes there is a gap And we have to bridge that gap as women. How do we reach? How do we interact with a younger person?
Wow.
I'm just jumping in here because we find we are looking at children, the young ladies, and we are looking at the future for them. We want them to focus on academics or skills so that they will not be vulnerable. And let's be honest and open. It's the women that are vulnerable. And we see that so many times with unwanted pregnancies in our teenage girls, and their whole life is messed up. While the young man or whoever the father is moves on, the young lady now has to deal with an unwanted pregnancy, and her career, her education, and is interrupted or even put on the shelf. And when we see also that a mother, many times we have broken homes or dysfunctional homes, and where it's a single parent, where it's a mother-led home, you would find out the mother has to find the income to sustain. If the fathers go off, the mother remains with the children and with the responsibility, and they need a steady income. What we would have to do, as Sherry-Ann said, is have the discussion, have the connection. We have to be real. We have to make the time to discuss with them and use examples. We have to make it real, as Sapphira says. And we probably have to organize a lot more workshops, not telling workshops, but workshops where we can have a discussion with young people their age, people that they could connect to, so that they could see it. Because sometimes young people don't take it from their mothers and their aunties and those who keep talking to them. But sometimes they can hear it from a counselor, hear it from someone else, see it from someone beside the pastor in the church or so on. And so we have these workshops, we organize these seminars, these open talk forums, these little experiences, these informal talks, that we let them know what is happening. And we have, so many people that are young, that have made these errors, that have been without the skill, and they could talk about the difficulty that they experience in coping. Yeah. So we could now, talk about coping skills and bring it across. As much as we could do, we can do to reach as many as we can reach. We may not be able to reach all, but we have to do something so that our young ladies are not vulnerable, because vulnerable young ladies would make more pregnancies, will put their health at risk, put their whole personality at risk and everything. So it's a very good question that we have to deal with.
Wow, I want to thank you ladies very much for sharing such great information. And as a man and as a father, as a pastor, one of the things that concerns me, and you just alluded to it, Mom, vulnerableness. And I see it a lot in society. I don't know how it is in Trinidad or USA or whatever else part of the world, but I see young ladies really vulnerable, and they're vulnerable because of these two things: not educated and not having a skill. And then, they're taken advantage of. And that's one thing that is necessary. And with our workshops, our teachings, our preachings, our sessions, we have to we're focusing on women today. So on women. So that's okay if we address such. But, I think it's important for us to be able to help move these young women, those young ladies coming up 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, and teaching them the importance of getting a song education or acting in a skill which they can use for themselves, and not have to depend on anybody to support them, lest they become vulnerable to the prey of the enemy. And that's basically what we're saying. We don't want them to be a prey of the enemy. So being educated or have a skill is vital. So ladies, I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I know that there's lots that we didn't get into, but I am trusting God that we were able to share some information with someone viewing, and that they will be able to pass it on to someone to learn a bit more or understand a bit more of what the importance of woman functioning in the 21st century and functioning in today's life. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for being here. And I want to say to our viewers, thank you for joining us. Share, like our program. At 8 o'clock, we're going to go live on Impact. So please join us there on Joseph Lamont and Terry Lamont's page. And then at 10 o'clock, we have Prophetic Encounter. You don't want to miss none of these 2 sessions. On Impact tonight, we're going to talk about courts. And on PE tonight, we're going to talk about the showdown. So you don't want to miss it. So please join in those 2 sessions. So thank you for joining us and have a good evening.